everybody, and welcome to today's video. I want to talk about awards shows in video games today, and I do admit there is a little bit of an agenda behind that. We'll start revealing our own award winners next week at digitally-downloaded.net, and I'm promoting that a little bit here, and I highly recommend you go and check that out. We'll be unveiling one award winner per day over a couple of weeks. There has been a lot of really interesting games that have been released this year, and a lot to celebrate, and I'm hoping our awards do that a little bit, so please do check that out. Anyway, that's enough of the promotion. Let's talk about the Game Awards instead. That is the event, the Game Awards, and why I think it is actually a big problem for the video game industry. Last week, the Game Awards announced the shortlist for its many categories. And make no bones about this stuff matters to the industry a great deal. It's actually unbelievable that it was just 6 years ago that the Game Awards was launched, because in the years since, this has become a major event where big announcements are made, and there is a lot of prestige behind winning one of these things. Every year when the shortlists are announced, social media goes into meltdown, and the company that gets the most gongs is generally seen as being that year's winner. This year it will be Sony for sure, for certain. There is no doubt about that, even just looking at the shortlists, because a lot of its games have been shortlisted for a ridiculous number of awards. Sony has had a bumper year as far as the Game Awards is concerned, and that will be reflected in the amount that it also wins. The Game Awards, the games industry, has been searching for its big Academy Awards-like recognition event, and the Game Awards is the one that is pushing up most hard against that title. It is almost certainly the biggest and the most well-followed awards show in the games industry at the moment, and it's growing every year to the point that it has got that Academy Awards sheen to it. We've actually seen articles written in mainstream publications that basically say it is the Academy Awards of video games, so it has that reputation now. The big thing about that, though, is that the Game Awards does a really poor job in highlighting the best in the games industry, and is so overloaded with sponsorships and commercial deals that the integrity of the entire event is irreparably compromised. This is the biggest Game Awards that we have in the industry. Again, to say that clear, it is the biggest one by a long way, and the one that has the most prestige attached to it. And it is actively harming the industry that this is the case. For all the issues that people have with the Academy Awards in cinema, and there are many, don't get me wrong about that, the organisation that runs them works really hard to maintain at least a veneer of independence and respectability in how it chooses its winners and how they are rewarded. All the Game Awards is, by contrast, is a celebration of the money that goes into video games. With very few exceptions, the games that get nominated for these awards are either the big money games from the likes of Sony, Ubisoft, Activision, EA and Microsoft, or they're the easy darlings of the mainstream, the ones that everybody played because it had that reputation for that moment of being the game to play. Hades, in this instance, for 2020, Hades is the independent darling, and there was a time where everybody was playing it, even though it is an indie game. It was between all the big releases, so it caught a bit of attention that way, and it just snowballed. That is the one game that has a chance in the Game Awards to break through as the indie title. All of this makes sense. This process makes sense. The games that end up getting the awards makes sense. When you look at the advisory board of the show, and as well you look at the people that actually choose the awards. The advisory board of the show is all CEOs and executives at the major company labels like Activision, EA, Tencent, Nintendo, and so on. And it is predominantly the Western companies. Japanese developers and publishers have never had much of a look in to the Game Awards, other than a token Nintendo title every year, or the fleetingly rare big-budget Square Enix game. For example, Final Fantasy VII Remake got a couple of nods this year. But there is a reason for the fact that the Japanese industry, despite being the second largest in the world, in terms of the size and the number of games that are created, doesn't get the same representation in the Game Awards as the Western developers. The voting process, meanwhile, it involves around 100 of the mainstream gaming outlets, with a dash of fan vote thrown in as well. In the context, it should come as no surprise that the games that end up being shortlisted and winning are driven by the ones that have the big budgets and big PR campaigns behind them. Most niche games, regardless of their quality, struggle to get even a dozen media outlets from the outlier ends of the games media to look at them. You go to Metacritic, you have a look at any niche game, and if it has many reviews at all, it'll be 10, 12, 15 or so. So when you think about it, how is a game like that going to be able to catch the attention of enough media outlets to get a nomination? So that's and the reviews that do appear on Metacritic for those kind of niche games are from outlets like my own, and we don't involve ourselves with the Games Award voting process. It's only the mainstream websites that get a chance to vote, so it becomes even harder for the niche games to catch the attention of the outlets that they need to get a nod into the awards. Now, to contrast that with the Academy Awards voting process, the Academy Awards has 8,500 voters or thereabouts that are spread across 17 branches which vote in their own category. So, for example, the editors nominate the editors, the actors nominate the actors, the directors nominate the directors, and so on. These votes, to be a voter in the Academy Awards, you need to have feature film credits and you need to apply to be part of the Academy voting process. Now, this system is by no means perfect, and it does still weight towards the popular and the most prominent films, but this process does mean that the PR machine has much less control over what actually gets voted for, and the winners are determined by people that have genuine expertise in the categories that they're voting for. The art direction is voted for by people who have expertise in art direction, and while the PR industry does still involve itself with the awards, it generally lobbies directly at these people to try to convince them to look at its films, rather than in the games industry where the PR lobby is really the one driving which games actually get nominated in the first place. So, for example, a film like Parasite can end up winning the best film at the Academy Awards in a way that the equivalent, being a weird foreign film, just could not happen at the Game Awards. And while we are talking about something that is self-evidently subjective in nature, the quality of art objects, there is an inherent difference in how the two groups determine how these awards behave. So, people that work in the film industry by nature need to watch a lot of films. They need to be aware of what their peers are doing, and they need to take notice of the exciting newcomers on the block. They have to be active and willing consumers of the art form, and they need to think about what they're watching at a pretty deep level. So one example that I thought of immediately as I was writing the script for this video is James Franco. Now, whatever you think about Franco, and I have thoughts about him, it's not relevant to this video, but he has molded himself to be an eclectic and interesting person within the heart of Hollywood. And I once read an essay that he wrote on Shion Sono's Tokyo Tribe, which I found to be absolutely fascinating. Here was a very mainstream actor being very breathlessly enthusiastic about a quirky art film that somebody right on the periphery of the industry made. Shion Sono is a very well-respected director, particularly within film fan circles and film critic circles and filmmaker circles, but he doesn't have that kind of mainstream pull. And Franco could write this thing and think about films in this way as artworks, because he's not looking at the film as a product. His essay that he wrote wasn't there to tell people to spend their money on this thing. He wrote it as an actor and an artist admiring a work of art, and when he votes in the Academy Awards, one would assume that he votes based on those principles. On the other hand, game journalists are really there to give buying advice. Even when we try and engage with games more deeply, it ends up being what we inherently do and what people use us for. I'm well aware it doesn't matter if I could write a 4,000 word essay on a game. Ultimately, what people want to know is whether it's worth their time and money, and that is something that I have just had to deal with over time. What's more, what we see and play is very PR driven, particularly at the larger sites, but even my own experience is this. The bigger games literally land in our inboxes completely unsolicited because we're on a PR mailing list. I didn't need to request a copy of Demon's Souls, for example, on PlayStation 5. It landed with me because Sony sends me basically every game that it produces for review. The games that we're not personally interested in get passed on to colleagues or freelancers, but And we're not really incentivized to go out there and explore for the niche and peripheral, because we're so busy playing the games that are already landing in our inbox and we've already been made interested in thanks to the PR cycle. So there is just not that same incentive to explore the full breadth and depth of what video games offer as there is with filmmaking and the people that vote in the film awards. This adjusts how we as critics look at, think about, and value games. How popular a game is matters to us because those popular games get the clicks and engagement on the website. The value of games as we see it is tied up with how much other people enjoy it as a product. When we score a game, we basically need to think about whether the person who sees that score and then goes and buys the game on that recommendation will have the experience that we are promising them through our review. We might try to write art criticism about these things, and I certainly do so, but we are on the outside of the industry looking in, and it is a very different dynamic to the voting process and the people that vote on the Academy Awards. That's not to say that game criticism can't be deep and isn't valuable. I, of course, believe that. I spend enough time doing game criticism with such little reward, and I do that because I believe in it so wholeheartedly. And I love video games. I want to support the industry in the sense that I want to help celebrate the good quality games. I want to encourage it as an art form. To do that, I need to write criticism, and I understand that, and I work within the boundaries that game criticism works within. The point that I'm making here is I know how large websites work. The websites that vote in the Game Awards, I know how they work. I've worked on them in the past. I was part of GamePro many years ago, and I do understand how these priorities work within these websites. So I understand how game criticism consumes, or game critics consume and think about games, and I understand that this process, what we do, how we get involved with the games industry, skews the understanding of the value of any given game to what is popular, what is expensive, and what gets talked about the most. When you throw in the heavy commercial sponsorship of the Game Awards, which the Academy Awards does not have on any level whatsoever, then the legitimacy of these awards in determining the best quality of the games each year really needs to be questioned. And this hurts the artistry of games as a consequence as well. See, while Hollywood, again, is by no means perfect, it does produce Academy Award bait. Prestige films like, for example, The Lighthouse, which got a good run at the Academy Awards a few years ago, or last year, and that kind of film got greenlit because everybody that was working on that film saw the opportunity, I guess, to put their name next to something that would likely get Academy Award nominations and perhaps even some wins, which gives their career a significant boost. It's also good for the studio to invest in these things because producing Academy Award winning films, which are voted on, again, on some level because of the artistry of them, is actually good for the studio. It's a prestige thing. But because the dominant awards that we have in the video game industry is the Game Awards, the only incentive there is to produce bigger and bigger budget versions of the same thing that won in the previous year. The only incentive in the games industry, outside of the very niche indie stuff, is to produce endless examples of the equivalent of superhero films. Superhero films don't get a great run in the Academy Awards typically because they don't have a great deal of artistic value to them, as popular as they are. They don't have that quality that has the industry itself recognize them as high quality films. Whereas in the games industry, the voting system again is so product based that superhero films would get a much better run at the Game Awards. Anyhow, that's my general thoughts on the Game Awards. I'd be very interested in hearing what other people think about them. Do you watch the awards? Do you like them? Do you think they represent the most artful, intelligent, and valuable games that the industry has created for the year? Do you think that this year is a good example of that? Sound out in the comments, let me know your thoughts, and please do click that like and subscribe button so you'll never miss a video of mine. And also, please do consider backing me on Patreon if you enjoy my work, because who knows, one day I might be able to scale DDNet and this YouTube channel to the point where I have a rival Game Awards to rival the Game Awards, or perhaps not. I have actually managed large awards in other sectors in the past, and doing these things can be exhausting, and as critical as I am for the Game Awards, good on Jeff for being so successful with them. They are a lot of work, and he's obviously put a lot of passion into them, so congratulations to him for that. Anyway, please do back me on Patreon anyway. Even $1 a month will help me to grow this channel, and otherwise, have a great week, and we'll see you at the next video.